This is the part one of a 5-video series. We're going to be discussing balancing, compression, panning, EQ, bus compression, EQ, all that processing of bus, and then we're going to do some exporting and then mastering. This reference track here, the mix that I had originally sent to him, and it was approved, and he enjoyed it, so we're going to use that as our reference, as our point of reference. You can use any track that you would like. Find a track that is similar in genre and mixing and kind of something that you hope to aim for in your mix. Say you want your kick hitting at this and you want it to sit in this level, this frequency range. Before we jump in here, I'm going to kind of go over what I've done because I have some things that I've done, kind of tedious small things that aren't really that important but are important. So what I've done is I have added a small fade here at the beginning and end of each clip, as you can see, and then at this one I got rid of it because there's some random noise that I didn't like. So I added a fade to avoid clipping and popping. And then I went in and I have everything bussed. So I have bus 10 is going to be my percussion, which is sent to my drum sub, and then being sent out to my stereo out. I have my samples are being bused to the sample bus, which is bus 11. The bass bus is being sent to 12, and then I have a reverb on bus 1, and then a sidechain that I use to sidechain the kick to the basses and stuff. I can't remember exactly because I mixed this quite a few months ago, so I can't remember exactly how I had it. So the first thing we're going to do is, after you've got everything set up and organized, that's the most important thing you can do to your session is organize it. You want to be able to have a friend of yours or the person that produced it sit down and be able to go in and just say, oh, I know what he's doing, and jump right in, rather than having to find your kicks all over the place. Your buses aren't labeled. That is a mess, and I've had it before, and it's very frustrating. So get your stuff organized. Clean session is very important. Your workflow is going to just fly when you have everything cleaned up. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to get the balance. We're going to get a general balance. We don't have any EQ, no compression, no reverb, nothing. The first thing you can do, the most important thing you can do, is get a balance. If you can't get a decent balance of your instruments and samples or whatever you're using, then your mix and your master is not going to turn out. I've listened to this 100,000 times, so I should be able to jump right in and kind of know where things should be sitting. But that's the most important thing, is you're going to get a balance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the percussion. I'm going to get a general level for the percussion, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to set a loop here, and let's see, we got everything here. I have everything color coded, and we're going to start with the kick. I want the kick to hit right around in between 9 dB and -6 dB. So let's start with that. Oh, we got to mute my reference here. Okay, that should work for now. Just kind of get a rough blend of everything. We're going to bring the snares up a little bit. Cool. Okay, and then we'll mute that and we'll solo the reference. The second hi-hat comes in over here. Cool. Okay, so that's a good start. We have, let's see, our stereo out. We're hitting right around -6 dB. That's a bit hot, so let's bring all of them down a couple dB. Cool. Because remember, we're going to add basses and we're going to add the samples, so we're going to certainly bring up the volume. But that's a decent blend right now. So let's bring in the samples. Let's start with, we have sample 4 and sample, oh, we have parallel processing. That's right, I parallel processed these because I just like the way that sounded. So right now we'll just get this sample in and we can do that later. Okay, and then we'll start with, being that we have, this is kind of like the drop, I guess you could say. So let's get that, we have that sample in, and we'll do the parallel processing later. So let's get this bass in, let's get that mixed in too. Let's use our reference. Okay. Okay, I think that's good. That's a good balance. We're pretty close. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly what I had last time because, I mean, this is a different take. Let's be creative and let's see if we can get something cooler. So now we're going to go back, and there's no percussion on this part. So let's do the intro and let's get all these samples kind of balanced out a little bit. So we'll start with this sample here, the intro sample. I'm going to bring up these so I can hear them when they come in. Cool. So let's see, we have a mix now. Let's see how everything kind of flows in so far. again, the reference that I'm using has compression, EQ, the buses are processed, everything like that. So the compression is going to affect the levels ever so slightly, but right now I'm very pleased with how the levels are sounding. So we're going to move on to this portion, the outro, or the second section, I guess you could say. So we have our outro, and we have our outro sample, and we have our outro bass. So let's bring up that so we can kind of hear where it's at. Actually, let's see where it's flowing in here. Cool. I really like that. So let's jump back here. See that? I think the bass is kind of dropping out just a little bit, so I'm going to bring that in, and I think the sample is kind of, because I want to keep an even level across everything. When everything's transitioning, you don't want big jumps and you don't want big dives in the volume level. And again, compression will help even that out, but again, you want to get as close as possible with mixing, because compression and EQ are not going to fix things. You're supposed to utilize compression and EQ to enhance things, not fix something that's completely broken. So we want to get as close as we can to the balance. Cool. Yeah, I really like how that's sounding. So I think that's all the samples that we have, and I'm pretty pleased with how everything is sounding thus far. Let's compare it to our reference track here. So we'll go here. Cool. It's pretty close to what I'm hearing. I'm sure if you guys are hearing that too. So now that we have our level set, I'm very happy with how everything is set. Let's jump into the panning. Let's see if we can do some panning. I know I have some ideas on, usually with percussion, I like to pan things because when you have a drum set, not everything is right up the middle. When you have a drum set, you have your snares kind of off to the right or the left. You have your toms. You have your kick drum is usually right up the middle. You have hi-hats are kind of all over the place. So that's kind of what I like to do. I like to give that effect, even if you're using samples. So for the hi-hats, let's pan them a little bit. We'll see how that sounds. And again, it makes room for everything else. It makes room for the kick. It makes room for kind of everything else. So let's kind of throw everything off a little bit here. Dun, dun, dun. I like that triplet thing there. Actually, I think that could be a little bit louder. And this reverb, reverse crash, it already kind of slides pans from left to right, so I'm going to leave that because I like the imaging on it. Let's see here. The samples, I kind of want to keep... Actually, let's go back to the snare. I like to sometimes move the snare and the just ever so slightly off off center, just to make a little bit of room for that kick. The samples are pretty. They have a pretty wide stereo image to begin with. So we might go in, and I might go in and throw like a stereo spread on them on the bus. But for right now, I'm not going to pan them because they have a really nice stereo image. I really like the imaging on them. The basses, of course, I don't want to pan. Again, I might take a stereo spread and spread the higher frequencies a little bit. It sounds like there's some harmonics in there. Not really. It's mostly sub, but maybe we can get something cool out of that. So we have our panning and we have our balance set. Let's check our levels and make sure we're not going over our -6 to -9 dB, because remember, in mastering we want to keep lots of headroom and we don't want to get too crazy with the levels. So we have lots of headroom for our additional compression, harmonic, distortion, limiting, all that stuff. We want to make sure that we have plenty of room to do all of that. So let's check our loudest part of our song. Cool. That is cool. So I'm really pleased with that. We're hitting right around -6, which is exactly where I want to be. Now we'll go into the next movie and we'll start compressing.